Welcome back. If everyone could grab a seat, please. Okay. We're here with our last panel of the day. This will round out our EDU grouping for the day here. We are very grateful to have with us Lee Mazzocchi from, he actually came in from North Carolina today, so thank you very much for coming out. He's the Senior Vice President, Grid Solutions for Duke Energy, and Eileen Mikkelsen, who's the Vice President, Rates and Regulatory Affairs at FirstEnergy Corp. I believe we're starting with Lee. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Duke Energy is certainly pleased to be a part of such a progressive view of the future, and I just want to commend the Commission for advancing power forward. I'm really excited today to share with you Duke Energy's vision for the electric grid of the future, why it's important, and more specifically, how we plan to get there. Back in February, Duke Energy announced our plans, which included significant investment in the electric transmission and distribution system. That's the power grid, what we call the power grid. Our power grid powers the lives of 23 million people in 6 states. It's vital to health, safety, and prosperity of the communities we serve. And we're building a smarter energy future for our customers. And this is great news for them, as well as for the local economies that we serve. We often talk about assets and technology, but it's so important for us to begin our grid investment discussions with the guiding principles that we apply. And really, what do those grid investments do for our customers? So we've established what we call some North Stars that really drive the decisions that we've made to invest in our T&D system. Those North Stars include ensuring that our grid is much more customer enabling, offering our customers more convenience, more choices, more control, more flexibility, the ability for customers to have options, whether it's to pick their own bill due date or to pay in advance as they go. In some cases, it might be to change their role in their energy experience to include owning their own generation or engaging in advanced energy management. Consistent with that, our customers really want reliable service. So it's imperative that our grid be reliable and smart. And it's important that we both reduce outages and interruptions, keep them from happening, but when they do occur, develop a grid that automatically isolates trouble and with very limited human interaction, anticipates, mitigates failures, and in some cases restores power automatically. Thirdly, it's important that our grid support sustainability. It's so important that the grid impact our communities in a positive manner, reducing waste, strengthening local economies, creating jobs, increasing safety, and creating other environmental benefits. These investments that we've laid out for the next 10 years support all of these North Star objectives. So we've got a pretty comprehensive vision for the future at Duke Energy. It's very similar to our distinguished peers in the industry, but we are extremely proud to package it and tell you more about it today. So it begins with the fact that we have a massive grid. You know, the grids that we serve in 6 states are very large. Here in Ohio, we cover more than 3,000 square miles. We've got 2,500 miles of transmission lines, 19,000 miles of distribution lines, 712,000 electric, residential, commercial, and industrial customers. And our customers want more out of their system, and likewise, technology is driving a number of changes to the way our system operates and what it's required to do in the future. So we really think of our grid as needing to have certain levels of performance that are much higher in the future than they are today, as well as capabilities to offer advanced functionality in the future. Reliability, as I mentioned, is at the heart of this. Our customers want more and more reliability. Getting closer and closer to perfect power creates tremendous opportunities for us. And we have a number of investments to promote that. Likewise, our system is seeing the challenges that have been highlighted earlier. Challenges not only from reliability and intense weather, extreme storms, but also challenges associated with new technologies. Those technologies include distributed resources, which might be distributed solar. Energy storage is going to be a great value contributor to the grid. And then there are other advanced technologies that will create opportunities, whether it's demand management systems, customer information that can tell us how to more optimally configure our grid and operate it in the future. Grid technologies to identify problems and detect or reduce the number as well as duration of outages is key to this reliable future. Providing our customers more meaningful information, whether it's energy usage information, usage alerts, or more detail about what happens in the event of outages. It's important that our future system be more secure, both from a physical and a cybersecurity standpoint, to keep that grid safe. And it's also key that we support the sustainable growth of the economies that we serve, support the growth of renewable energy, as well as other emerging technologies, such as the increasing prevalence of solar. So we've organized our investments in seven core categories that are outlined here. And they include some traditional smart grid technologies and some that are very asset intensive, not necessarily high-tech investments. Under our 7 categories, we have significant detail, what I'd call program components. And for each one of these components, we've laid out a 10-year plan, which includes the units of work, the cost per unit, the milestones of activities, the expected benefits and outcomes that would be associated with each. And I'm going to highlight a few of these, some of these already underway, and certainly others that we have to intensify going forward. So advanced metering infrastructure, a lot of discussion about that. This really was the foundational grid investment for our full deployment here in Ohio. And all these technologies certainly continue, but there are updates and refreshments that will be made to our AMI infrastructure going forward. The second big category of investment is what we call our self-optimizing grid. So we've heard some discussions about self-healing technologies. Self-healing for us has been defined by providing auto-restore capabilities within certain circuits by pre-programming isolation algorithms. So you have an interruption and you have a pre-programmed response to isolate those outages. And we can isolate outages down to around 1,000 customers per outage where we've deployed self-healing teams. Now, if you really look to the future, a much more advanced solution is available, and that's what we call this self-optimizing grid. So instead of going with pre-programmed solutions, we can leverage our advanced distribution management system and fault isolation and service restoration functions to leverage more than just a pre-programmed solution, but actually do analysis on the spot and reconfigure our system based on real-time data. It's not just a pre-programmed solution. And the standards that we're deploying would isolate outages instead of maybe 1,000 customers per outage down to potentially around 400 customers per outage. We've got additional criteria. The investments that would be involved would be not just the automation and technology, not just the communications infrastructure, but in some cases just more capacity, more interconnections between circuits, and certainly the switches themselves. To date, we have 33 self-healing teams in service in Ohio. They've been in service for several years. We've accumulated over 54 million avoided customer minutes out as a result of those self-healing team operations. And we see so much more potential going forward. Hardening and resiliency, this is another very large category of interruptions. And this is to really target the leading causes of outages. So self-optimizing grid allows your system to reconfigure when an outage occurs. We're going after the cause of outage with H&R investments. And we've got a significant amount. These are numerous. we tackle the leading cause of outages. We know what types of equipment are likely to fail. We know the areas where our system is configured in a way that might make it more susceptible to a long duration interruption. We also know the areas that are subject to repeat interruptions over and over again. And we've got a number of targeted programs, whether it's upgrading equipment, replacing old wire with new wire, improving insulation levels, deploying in some cases new fault isolation technology, and reducing those outages and interruptions on our system. The fourth program is another one that is not that sophisticated, but by all means can have a tremendous impact. And this is our targeted undergrounding program. And it's really a subset of hardening and resiliency, but because it's so massive and can have such a transformational impact, we've separated this out. As a part of our overall grid investment program, we'll be looking at surgically replacing segments of poor performers on our distribution system. Many of these are in areas of dense vegetation. They serve customers who are experiencing multiple outages over and over. Often they're in difficult to reach places that require not only an extended outage to restore, but they're just difficult for our crews to get to. And as a result, we can reduce a number of outages, the associated response time and costs, as well as the impact to other customers from momentary interruptions and voltage sags. And this will improve not only our major storm restoration when we have wind events or ice storms, but just our routine thunderstorm performance. Similarly, another category is under transmission. And we've got a series of similar hardening and resiliency investments to really upgrade our aging assets that are reaching end of life. But before we do that, we have a series of investments to deploy more sensors, condition-based monitoring, health and risk management, and the analytics that go with those technologies so that as we approach our aging infrastructure, we can do it in a way that determines those pieces of equipment that are most likely to fail and address them first. We've talked a lot this morning about communications network upgrades. And while communications is certainly behind the scenes, these investments are essential. It's so important that we invest to provide the high speed, the high bandwidth, and secure communications, the pathways, whether it's fiber optics or hardwire as well as wireless, for the increasing number of smart components, sensors, remotely activated devices, both on our transmission and our distribution system. And then likewise, behind the scenes of these asset investments are a number of advanced systems, which would include an advanced distribution management system that would integrate both our outage management, our GIS system, and our DMS, our distribution management system, into one, giving us much more visualization and transparency of what's going on, the ability to integrate distributed energy resources, and do that in a way that's interconnected with our outage management system. Likewise, we've got a long list of data and analytics systems as well as algorithms that we can leverage going forward to use the data that we'll be getting from all of these smart devices. And the nice thing is these investments are great not only for the economy to reduce the cost associated with disruption, but they're actually jobs creators and good job creators for the areas that we serve. So the transition to the next generation grid is really changing the way we've got to do business going forward. We're making strategic grid investments to develop this dynamic grid capable of integrating resources, maintaining highest levels of reliability. And we're doing this with an eye towards achieving the greatest value for our customers and the economic value for the states that we serve. We're looking hard at cybersecurity, grid resiliency, and grid hardening technologies to make sure they're integrated appropriately into our grid investments. And we're working with industry-leading partners with new technologies and focusing and concentrating on interoperability. And while it's a challenge to standardize, we're finding so much common ground with our partners. We're laying the foundation to establish more services and the capability to meet our customers' need for information in the future. At the end of the day, the customers got to experience the value and the benefits. And consistent with this, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to fair distribution and monitoring our cost for our customers. We've got a customer-centered vision here, both performance as well as cost. So this is an ambitious but achievable plan to upgrade our energy grid, gives our customers the reliability that they demand and the services that they want. And now is the time to build our smart energy future, and Duke Energy is proud to be leading the way with you. Thank you.
Lee, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and have Eileen speak, and then we'll ask questions of the full panel. Thank you so much. Eileen?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Hack, Vice Chairman Tromble, Commissioners, staff, and all other interested stakeholders who are here today to join in this very important conversation. As I stand before you today, the fourth, I'll say, well, there's good news and there's bad news with my presentation. The good news is there seems to be very significant alignment among the Ohio utilities about how to proceed forward in terms of modernizing our grid. The bad news is there's significant alignment, so now you're going to have to listen to the fourth presentation. It's going to have many, many of the themes that you've already heard this afternoon, so I appreciate your patience in that respect. I wanted to remind you that I'm actually here today on behalf of Ohio Edison, the Cleveland Electric Illuminating Company, and the Toledo Edison Company. And we're here really to share our assessment of our current distribution system capabilities and to highlight for you investments that we think are necessary in our distribution system in order to support future capabilities. In making that assessment, we were mindful of the two pillars for Power Forward. The first pillar, of course, as you've told us, is the customer and how we can enhance the customer's electricity experience. And then the second pillar we were mindful of is the technological and regulatory innovations that may be needed in order to accomplish this. Recognizing the third session is focused on the regulatory aspects, our analysis will focus on the customer as well as technology. The good news is, as we assess our current distribution system, it is clear that it continues to serve our customers well. The primary requirements for our distribution system are reliability, are my lights on, and safety. Are we safely delivering electricity to our residential customers and our businesses across our service territory? Safe, reliable electric service is really the bedrock of the day-to-day activities of our 4,000 Ohio distribution utility customers, and I think they have certainly met the mark. Our three utilities in Ohio are consistent top performers in the state for reliable service as measured by frequency of outages and the duration of outages. Toledo Edison, I'm proud to say, is a top quartile performer nationally across all reliability indices. Not only does our distribution system perform well among our peers, but our residential and business customers also affirm that our reliability matches their expectations. When surveyed, of the customers who have experienced outages, over 73% consider the number of interruptions that they have experienced to be reasonable. When asked what our utilities could do to improve service to our customers overwhelmingly tell us that quicker restoration is the most important, and that's demonstrated by the blue slice of pie that you see in this chart, and it's been the consistent answer from our customers since 2008 when we started surveying them on this. So as we look to future investments in our distribution system, we remind you that it's important that we can't lose sight of the unique responsibility that our utilities have for providing safe and reliable electric service to our customers, and also the importance of the role of this commission in terms of providing regulatory oversight. So along with greater expectations for reliability and restorations, our customers are increasingly aware of new energy innovations hitting the market. The vendors are doing a very good job communicating the breadth and range of products that are available to our customers that can help them improve their quality of life, save money, save energy, and have a positive impact on the environment. When we surveyed our customers, the following gave us some framework where they said these items were somewhat or extremely important. 71% of the customers said online tools were somewhat or extremely important to help control costs. 69% said renewable energy options were somewhat or extremely important, and 40% cited electric vehicle charging. So our utilities, with the PUCO's oversight, need to find ways to affordably integrate these technologies into our distribution system without jeopardizing the safety and reliability of our system. We've already seen adoption of these technologies on our distribution system. Our customer end use studies show increased penetrations for distribution generation, in-home automation, and electric vehicles. As shown in these charts, we expect adoption will accelerate in the years ahead. Whether it's electric plug-in vehicles or distributed generations, these innovations pose new challenges as well as opportunities for the operation of our distribution system in a continued, safe, reliable fashion. Fortunately, we believe these challenges can be managed with new technology. Back in the late 1960s and 70s, in the inner ring suburbs of Cleveland, there was rapid adoption of air conditioning, and that dramatically changed the load that we saw on our system, and particularly the performance of our local distribution transformers. At that time, there was no way for the company to know where and when the load was going to be added, and our only source of signal was, in fact, when these distribution transformers overloaded, causing an outage situation. So I ask you to fast forward now to the day when multiple people are returning home from work and they're plugging in their electric vehicles to charge right at the exact time our system is typically peaking anyway. Instead of ending up with overloaded transformers, as we saw in the example with the air conditioning adoption, this new technology, which we'll talk more about later, will allow our operators and our engineers to see the load growth and plan for the growth in order to avoid outages. Technology plays a key role in improving our customers' experience, and I think we need to remind ourselves that that technology isn't necessarily limited to things that attach to our distribution system. At FirstEnergy, we're continually improving the way we touch our customers and how our customers are able to reach us. We offer a variety of mobile communications tools that make it convenient and simple for our customers to get up-to-date information on their electric service. We were among the first in our industry to offer a mobile website, and we are now rolling out a new responsive website that will provide even greater convenience to our customers on the go. We've been recognized multiple times by J.D. Power as a top performer among utilities for mobile optimized websites and smartphone applications. With our mobile optimized website and smartphone applications, our customers can easily manage their electric accounts on the go. Customers can report outages through text messages and through Facebook. They can sign up to receive automated text alerts or emails to stay informed about restoration efforts and planned interruptions, or to get billing reminders or severe weather alerts. Our customers can also stay updated on social media channels including Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. In addition to the mobile apps and our other customer-facing technologies, our Ohio workforce is using mobile tools to speed restoration, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the #1 priority for our customers in terms of improving our service. For example, everyone in our mobile workforce either has Toughbooks or smartphones so that they have access to real-time information and communication when they're out in the field. Our first responders can now send photos of outage situations on their smartphone to our outage management system so that our engineers can analyze with the photo the severity of the data, which yields insights into crew size as well as materials that need to be mobilized for deployment in order to effectuate the repair. These tools help us mobilize more quickly and reduce restoration time for our customers. There are, however, a whole range of technologies that are or will become part of our distribution system that will provide more customer choice, greater transparency on energy usage information, greater flexibility to restore outages, better integration with renewables and distributed energy resources, and integration of new technologies. The enhanced or smart grid platform will require smart investments in our existing distribution system for things like circuit upgrades, circuit ties, and substation SCADA. It will also require the creation of an advanced data management system, or ADS, which will enable the benefits of future distribution automation, advanced metering infrastructure, as well as integrated volt-VAR control. ADMS is the real-time nerve center that coordinates all the other grid modernization components and enhances their effectiveness. If I think back to the air conditioning example we had earlier, if we had ADMS with all the underlying technology, we would have avoided the outages that customers experienced during that period of rapid adoption of the air conditioning technology. We believe it's important to install the ADMS early in the process of modernizing the grid in order to provide the operators and engineers with a tool that they can use to effectively organize and interpret the increasing amounts of information that's being made available to them. As more and more information is available to the system operators, ADMS performs decision analysis that will assist the operators and engineers in better managing our distribution system. Here in Ohio, we deployed smart grid technologies to 45,000 customers in a 400 square mile area in suburban Cleveland. The modernization initiative was somewhat unique in that it included a customer behavior study in addition to testing advanced metering and distribution automation technology. Our customer behavior study was recognized nationally with an EPRI Technology Transfer Award for its contribution to the body of research on the role of the customer in smart grid deployment. Our program also received an EPRI Technology Transfer Award for our research findings related to distribution automation. We believe that after necessary smart investments are made in circuit ties, circuit upgrades, ADMS, and other infrastructure work, smart grid investments for our utilities should include advanced metering, distribution automation, and integrated volt-VAR control. When deployed together, supported by an ADMS system, these technologies comprise a comprehensive modern grid that will support the current and future needs of our customers. As I mentioned earlier, the overwhelming priority for improving service for our customers is shorter restoration time. Deployment of distribution automation technology helps us achieve that customer priority. Distribution automation results in fewer sustained outages for our customers and quicker restoration times. Let's take a look at a quick example, a very simple example, and recognizing it's a simple example. There's 3 circuits in this demonstration, and in reality, our distribution system has almost 3,000 circuits and about 650 substations. But to demonstrate the value, assume we have a truck pole accident that creates a fault for us on circuit A1. Without distribution automation, breaker A1 would open to isolate the fault, and all the customers between breaker A1 and recloser 5, which is also open, would experience a sustained outage until the damage from the truck pole accident was repaired or until our line crews manually isolated that. Now with DA, what's going to happen is breaker A1 would still open, but recloser R1 would also open, isolating the fault to a much shorter circuit segment and causing fewer customers to have this sustained outage. After the fault is isolated, DA would automatically close recloser 5, restoring service to all customers between recloser R1 and R5. In this example, the customers between R5 and R1 would experience only a momentary outage instead of the sustained outage, as that load would no longer be served out of this substation A in this example, but rather it would be served out of substation B. This automatic operation replaces the manual operation that otherwise might have required mobilizing linemen and line trucks to drive the circuit to identify the source of the fault and then to go to the reclosers to isolate that segment. All of this happens automatically with distribution automation, which allows that line crew to immediately get out to the source of the fault and start the repair. So you've taken customers that historically have seen sustained outages, move them into a momentary bucket, and then shorten the restoration time for those customers that have the sustained outage. In our smart grid pilot, the experience we have to date on distribution automation has shown that it's reduced the number of sustained outages by 12% and reduced our outage duration by 26%. One of the many things that we learned during our customer behavior study was that a subset of our customers want to engage more with the utility through in-home automation and pricing programs that reflect the actual cost to provide service at different times of day. Some of our customers like to control their usage themselves, while others prefer that the utility control their usage, and others, yet again, chose not to participate at all. What we did learn is all of our customers like to have a choice. They don't like to be told what to do. They like to have a choice in the programs that they participate in. The customers that did elect to participate reduced their energy usage and saved money on their electric bill. They liked the program because it didn't require much time and effort to save money, and even on event days, they had the option to choose to opt out if they didn't want to participate in a particular day. There's a couple examples of quotes directly from our customers who participated in this program on the slide. Just hit a couple of the highlights. They've said, "The program's rewarding in more ways than saving money. It has replaced my old ways of thinking about electricity use." Another customer said, "I didn't have to remember to do anything. It was automatic, and I could opt out if I wanted. It saved electric power, and it saved me money too." Customers that participate in our program had access to an online dashboard. Through the dashboard, the customers could view their hourly usage information to help them shift usage from peak periods to off-peak periods. And customers told us that having access to this information gave them a much better understanding of their electricity usage. In addition to peak time rebates, we gave customers the option to take service under a residential critical peak tariff. The price to customers combined a time of use rate with a critical peak price during the summer period. Our summer off-peak rates were lower than our summer on-peak rates, and both of those rates were significantly lower than our critical peak pricing rate. Customers who chose to participate in this program were notified in advance when a critical peak period was coming so that they could adjust their energy usage accordingly. During critical peak periods, our rate that we were charging customers in this program was slightly over 29 cents per kWh, so pretty significant rate. Some customers, like customer 1, as you can see on the slide, were able to adjust their activity during the critical peak periods, and in this instance, this particular customer saved $335 during the summer period. The blue line on the chart shows how the customer was able to curtail their consumption during that critical peak period, driving savings. We had a number of focus groups with our customers. Let's hear what one of our customers...
I learned to do things like laundry, run the dishwasher, all those extra things that I used to do during the day, late afternoon, being at home, after 9 o'clock at night, or first thing in the morning. And I was saving a lot of money.
Other customers, like customer 2 on this slide, have found that they weren't able to shift their usage, and as a result, in this particular instance, this customer ended up paying an additional $85 during the summer peak period. So again, in this instance, you can see the blue line on the chart shows that this customer is actually consuming significantly more electricity during this critical peak period than they would on a normal day.
I have 3 teenagers in the house and trying to get them to shut off lights, turn off the TV before they leave the house, and it's a battle. And
Yeah.
there's only so much one person can do.
Integrated volt-var control provides opportunities to reduce energy and/or peak demand on our distribution lines and can be used to improve power quality. The IVCC system will allow for more consistent voltage to be delivered to all of our customers regardless of their distance from the substation, thus reducing the amount of electricity customers use. Further, as more distributed generation is deployed on our system, IVVC will help us manage power quality for our customers that otherwise might be adversely impacted by changes in voltage when distribution resources are operating or come online. So along with distribution automation and advanced meter data, IVVC devices can help ensure that when power is restored, it's restored at the proper voltage levels. While we don't have current plans for storage on our distribution system, we continue to evaluate how we can properly integrate batteries and other storage devices into our distribution system. We've been involved in research projects in Ohio and across our 6-state service territory to better understand how these systems can benefit our customers. Moving forward, we can't lose sight or focus on the responsibilities that the utilities have for providing safe and reliable operation for our distribution system. We will require capital investments in order to modernize our distribution system, and we recognize that rate of investment needs to be balanced with customer affordability. I'll leave you with a story that back in the late 80s, sadly, I was working at that time. But back in the late 80s, I was working for the illuminating company, and we had a fairly significant outage. A number of customers were out. It took us a little over 5 days to fully restore all our customers to service, or so we thought. 2 weeks after that storm, we received a call in our call center from a very polite customer who was at the tail end of a distribution line, and she inquired. She knew we were very busy and we were doing our best, but when did we think we would be able to restore her to service? We had no idea she was out. Our only way of knowing she was out of service was her calling in, and her patience prevented her from making that call till 2 weeks after. So the point of the story is, as we move forward with this advanced modern technology, there's a couple of takeaways. One, we won't have to wait for her to call us in order to let us know that she's out of service. And two, this technology will help us restore all of our customers in a much more timely fashion than what they've historically grown used to. So in closing, I'd say that we thank you again, and we do believe that a collaborative process like Power Forward between our utilities, the PUCO, its staff, technology vendors, and other key stakeholders will assure a safe, reliable, affordable system that will enhance our customers' electricity experience in the future. Thank you.
Eileen, thank you very much. So let me ask some of the same questions that I asked the last panel, and it's really, these questions are really, hey, where are you right now? And Lee, I know that you're up from North Carolina, but the hope is that you can speak for the Duke service territory in Ohio and what's going on in their footprint there. But really, the first subject matter is the infrastructure that's needed to create what your version of the platform is. And I think specifically we spent a lot of time talking about the communications element of that platform. So can you talk about that, physical infrastructure, the communications portion of your platform? Where do you sit with that? And how does that sort of compare to where others sit?
Certainly, yeah. So we're at 100% AMI in Ohio, and it's performing well. It's a system. It was an early deployed system tied to the DOE stimulus grants. Learned a lot through that system, and we've actually advanced those learnings as we are deploying AMI in our other areas. Self-optimizing grid, self-healing teams, we've got 33 teams in service, and they're operating well today. Data and communications infrastructure is sufficient for what we see today, but if you really think about the number of devices that we foresee in the future, devices that we own and directly control, whether it's sensors on our system, whether it's remote control that we will have on switches and automation, or devices that might be owned or controlled by someone else that will be a future influencer for our system, we need additional infrastructure to integrate those. We need communications with the bandwidth, with the priority, with the security to give us the right type of operations. And we've talked a lot earlier about platforms. We've got a pretty good sense for what rides and works well on a mesh network, given the latency requirements, given the security and bandwidth requirements. For our operating technologies that we have very, very extreme high requirements around low latency and security and priority, that's where the investments need to take place. So a lot of our communications infrastructure investments over the next 10 years will be to replace aging fiber. That's something we've got to do. We've got an aging fiber infrastructure. We need to expand our fiber to newer areas, probably following our transmission system, and then from there go into our distribution system. And then on the edges, looking at the appropriate wired or wireless technologies that will meet that requirement going forward. So that's kind of how we've got our investments laid out. And then that complements the investments that we have in the systems that are going to be communicating with those devices, certainly leveraging the data and operating the system.
So in the communications network piece, you have full deployment of AMI, but that is not the envisioned communications network for your version of the modernized grid.
Yeah, so that's correct. So we feel like there are certain applications that will ride effectively on the AMI mesh network and then the backhaul that we have. So we've got a similar mesh network design. Our mesh network meters accumulate data to a point, we call it a grid router. We've built in that grid router some forward functionality, so the ability to do firmware upgrades, to actually plug and play new technologies in that grid router, we think gives us some flexibility going forward. But we don't have, out of that mesh network, the type of performance that we really need for things like distribution automation, distributed resource integration, and other things that just about have to happen in real time. So we've got to look at the other technologies, whether it's a private or public LTE network that has higher performance and meets more of our requirements. Certainly running fiber, even on some aspects of the distribution system, will be part of that solution. We actually have fiber in some of our network operating systems in the urban areas. And then the question of should you build a private LTE network is one that we're also considering, primarily to make sure that priority is there when we need it, security is there in addition to those bandwidth requirements.
Okay, very good. Eileen, did you want to comment on
Yeah,
that?
thanks, I appreciate it. I would say in terms of an infrastructure perspective, I would remind the group that we have had limited deployment to date of meter or distribution automation technology. We have 2 million customers across our Ohio service territory, and we have deployed advanced metering technology to about 45,000 of those customers. Now, we did take away from that pilot experience significant learnings, which we think will pay great benefits to us as we move forward in terms of deploying technologies across the rest of our service territories. Having said that, we believe that there are distribution platform enhancements that are necessary on our system, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of circuits, circuit ties, SCADA, ADMS that need to be put in place before we broadly deploy the advanced metering technologies, distribution automation, and integrated volt-var control that we've talked about. So from a kind of a distribution platform perspective, that's where we stand. With respect to the second part of your question, which I think went to communications, I would say that in February of this year, we signed an agreement to purchase 700 megahertz block of spectrum here in Ohio for 28 counties located in Ohio. This spectrum will be used to support our electric utility operations, with the primary use to support the reliable monitoring and control of our electrical equipment across our entire service territory. With respect to the question of whether or not, you have one system or a hybrid, I think our belief is the system needs to be a hybrid in order to reach all areas of our service territory. So again, as my colleagues have said, those outlying areas, you're going to need different technology in order to be able to effectively communicate with those areas. And then at this point, while we're still looking at these things and trying to further refine our learnings with respect to these things, I would say at this point, we're leaning towards a belief that a separate DA VVC communication network from our AMI communication network may be necessary. We're continuing to look at that. I think our preliminary belief is that the performance requirements of both systems are very different, and in order to accommodate those needs, they may best be served by having these separate networks. But again, continuing to look at that and watching as the industry develops.
Very good. Let's talk about the standards question. And so it sounds to me, and this is totally acceptable and fine. It sounds to me that you have work to do, right, on the infrastructure piece, the communications piece, and that is absolutely fine. And part of the reason why we're having this conversation is to figure out what the needs are to eventually deploy a better world for customers. So talk to me a little bit about the standards component of this. Again, we've heard a lot about standards so far during phase 2. What are your respective companies' perspectives with respect to standards? Do you think that based upon where you're situated, you can utilize industry-wide or national standards, or will you have to develop some of your own standards? And so I've asked this question before, but also, what do you think is the Commission's role in looking at what do you think the Commission's role is with respect to how you want to utilize standards?
Certainly, yeah. So by all means, we see a lot of opportunity with standards and standardizations, especially as it relates to interoperability. And we've worked with utility peers, with others in R&D space, and with a number of equipment manufacturers to develop an architecture. We call it an open field message bus architecture that basically provides that open standard and a common information model standard. So these are actually endorsed standards, and we've already got over 25 other suppliers of equipment as well as other utilities who have agreed that this type of architectural structure is going to provide a platform for interoperability and an ability to standardize without requiring vendors to give up the proprietary nature of their products and services. So that's something that we've been advancing for some time, and we've actually been really encouraged that even within that, utilities can develop their own unique standards as it relates to how their system is configured, what their legacy assets are, what the unique attributes of either their configuration or the operational challenges that they have. But they can still exchange information on this open field message bus platform using the information model in a way that we think is the right mix between allowing some localization of standards and then an industry level standard for interoperability. And as it relates to the to your role, I don't know that I should tell you what your role is.
Please tell us.
By all means, by all means, I would say the fact that you're promoting and encouraging the utilities to work together and to work together with suppliers, that's the right thing to do, because collaboration is going to give us the best solution and certainly one that's most efficient for our customers. So I'd say, to continue to advocate for that. I think, an eye to critical vulnerabilities for the future. You share a unique perspective, and we would welcome that eye and certainly that feedback going forward.
Very good. Eileen?
Thank you. From our perspective, we think that development of industry-wide standards is important. We, expect that to continue and to help really allow us to deploy these smart meter and smart grid technologies in a uniform fashion. We have already incorporated some smart grid equipment standards into our distribution design standards that we have today. We expect to continue to do that. As I said, we do believe industry standards are important, but much like my colleague, we do believe that there needs to be some flexibility retained for the utilities to create local standards that meet their local needs on their distribution system. And then with respect to the Commission's role, I think that the Commission has a very critical role in terms of oversight of the utility standards and the deployment of those standards as part of the deployment of this smart grid technology.
Okay, thank you. Last question relates to data. How you store it and where. And again, I think we'll get into it in phase 3. I said it with the last panel. There's going to be likely a transactional element associated with this. Commissioner Friedman has pointed that out before. And so talk to us just though about sort of just the physicality of your data stored and where, and obviously there's if you don't have as many meters deployed, this may be more of a here's what our game plan is, but love to hear about that.
Yeah, so I guess system-wide we're at about 2.5 million meters, AMI meters, on our way to closer to 8 million. So that's where we are in that journey. And we're building a meter data management system and scaling that system up to accommodate the data that we'll be getting from those meters. And so we're going to house that in our own data centers, and then we have applications outside of that will interface with the meter data management system, whether it's our customer information system, our outage management system, our remote order fulfillment and work management systems. They all interface with those meter data management systems. That's just for the meter data. Likewise, we're standing up an analytics group with a number, I think we're up to close to a dozen data scientists right now that are looking at how do I mine information out of, how do I take the data, turn it into information that we can either use to run and operate our system more effectively or give our customers more information than just how much did you use last month or how close are you to some monthly threshold. And we think there's a lot of opportunity there. The flip side of that is, are we moving too much data? And I think, that's as we get more and more data, how much of it do we really need? How much of it can we mine, use, and then discard so that we aren't building up this, this large repository of data that certainly seems like it could be unwieldy and inefficient going forward. Similarly, for us, other systems, we are standing up data warehouses. So we're going to be accumulating other data, whether it's customer information systems, asset management systems, and distribution management systems. We stand up, additional data management systems behind each one of those and house them similarly to the way we would our meter data management. And we have the same types of challenges there.
Very good. Eileen?
Thank you. First, I would start with saying we respect the critical importance of keeping our customers' data secure. We recognize that we are holders of our customers' data, but we are not owners of that data. We hold that asset, and we don't take that responsibility lightly, nor would we as we begin to capture additional information with respect to our customers. We recognize it's the customer's data, and we need to be mindful of that and make sure that that data remains secure and that it isn't shared in a manner that's inconsistent with the manner our customer would like the information to be shared with. So with that, I would say that we have introduced or kicked off an initiative within our company. It's called a Data Center of Excellence initiative, which really is an effort to take a forward look, maybe an aspirational look, at what data do we want to collect from our customers as part of this advanced metering initiative, as well as these other distribution initiatives. What data do we want to collect? Again, we've got data scientists looking at this on our behalf, internal to the company, trying to make judgments not only about what data do we think we want to capture today, but what data might we need to capture today that we will want to use in the future so that we don't find ourselves building a system that collects energy, billing demand, billing energy, and we find out that there's additional attributes that downstream we very much would have liked to have captured, but missed the opportunity to capture. So that initiative is underway right now. Given the amount of smart meters we have deployed, I think the view is it's aspirational in order to inform to us what data we need to collect. Our ultimate vision is that all of this information will be captured and stored in a common data warehouse, whether it's the AMI data, whether it's outage management information from any of our various distribution systems, would be captured and maintained in a common data warehouse. And it would, as I'm sure all the other utilities have, we have a very active security operations center within our organization that very closely monitors the traffic on our system and really is very alert to cyber threats and anything they can do to manage or prevent any breaches of our data or the data integrity with respect to not only our data, but our customers' data. So I would expect that to continue into the future.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give staff first run here. Christina?
Yeah, this is actually somewhat of a follow-up question to that question, and I think you guys both touched on it a little bit, but as you have such, new volumes of data from these new technologies, it sounds like there's a little bit of a shift, and I guess my question is, have you guys had to look at data management solutions more from a corporate perspective as opposed to various jurisdictions in terms of optimizing and leveraging kind of the data management solutions across your various footprints?
Great question. I'll start. Okay. Yeah. So we've looked at it corporate. So data governance is now a topic, and we're actually leveraging a COE approach to data governance, which includes data owners, data stewards, even standards around kind of what and how you treat certain types of data, and then those standards are created and deployed with our technology projects as we implement the data bases. Likewise, for analytics, we're having to stand up certain levels of standardization in terms of how we do the analytics that manage the data.
And sorry, one more follow-up. Does that lead to a requirement for more shared vendors across the jurisdictions as opposed to choosing different vendors within specific smart grid programs?
That's a really that's a great question. We tend to leverage our collective scale at the utility, and that does, it lands us at standardization, and often standardization translates to standardized suppliers in our supplier network. And so, our new AMI platform is the standard platform we use and will use for the foreseeable future for every new AMI meter, regardless of what jurisdiction. And likewise, it will conform to all of our standards, whether they're data standards or physical or cybersecurity standards or analytic standards and so forth. And that translates and gives us the the purchasing power to get really good economies of scale and benefits for our customers. But it does mean that we'll have standard suppliers in many cases across multiple jurisdictions.
From our perspective, again, our data is managed at the corporate level, not at the jurisdiction. So, physical security, cyber security, data security is all managed from a corporate platform and corporate standards that are deployed, not on a jurisdictional by jurisdictional basis.
Thank you. Chief. Okay. Dan?
I did have one question for the two of you, which just came to mind as I was listening to the discussion. A new question for me, actually. I didn't ask it of the other two utilities, but as you're developing your plans for grid modernization, do you find that the modernization improvements that you make, the investments that you make, the technologies that you deploy are customer oriented or customer class oriented? Are there certain customer classes that are more comprehensively perhaps or more targeted by the grid modernization effort than other customer classes?
Would you like to go? Yeah.
I'm happy to go first, thanks. I have not seen yet, and again, recognizing where we are, but any class distinction in terms of where we would deploy the technologies. I think that the metering technology cuts across all customer classes. Uniformly, our customers, whether they're business customers or residential customers, again, say their number one priority, number one thing we can do to improve service is shorten restoration time. Distribution automation across all customer classes addresses that need. So no, I have not seen any distinction customer class-wise.
Yeah, so I think we've seen distinction at a lower level of granularity of segmentation. So, certain segments of customers like certain functionality, certain capability, certain options, but it's not necessarily at the residential versus the commercial versus the industrial class. It's really at kind of different types of segmentation. We do see, certain services that go with some of these technologies. They just play very well to a specific segment. But generally, the technologies we're deploying, offer some degree of benefit to all our customers.
Great. Commissioner Friedman?
Just very quickly, grid modernization, I think there's a consensus, requires a platform development. And a platform can be used as a means by which to cultivate a bilateral relationship, enhanced bilateral relationship, Eileen, between the customer and the EDU, but it can also be used as an enabler of a multilateral relationship where there's the customer, there's the EDU, and there are other product and service providers that offer enhanced customer experience related products and services. Eileen, I inferred from your comment relative to data security that it goes beyond cybersecurity and into a privacy concern.
That's correct.
Is that correct? So I guess the question is twofold. One, is there any means by which you could get comfortable with a disclosure of that data to non-EDU entities? And do you have any empirical evidence that indicates the level of sensitivity on the part of the customer relative to a privacy consideration?
So to question number one, I think, again, as I said, I believe that is the customer's data, right? We are the holders. We are responsible for protecting that. So could I get comfortable sharing that data to the extent that the customers tell us it's okay to share that data? Then fine, we can share that data in a secure fashion. To your second question, do I have any empirical evidence? No.
Okay. No, that's okay. Thank you. I appreciate the candor. That's okay.
Yes, so I couldn't add much to that. We believe the data is the customers, and we are very comfortable having, the customers, giving them access to the data, or their delegate, if they want to delegate someone to take that data. Certainly, providing that data beyond someone that the customer has given permission to, it disturbs us. And as we're deploying new meters into certain areas, there's a very small portion of the public that is a little bit anxious, even suspicious, that the meter itself is going to expose them to some degree of vulnerability. So that is an anecdotal, even though it's a very small percentage, point of reference there.
Thank you both very much.
Very good. Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you both for being here and taking your time this afternoon. And just wanted to go back to a question or a comment that I had before in the previous panel. And Eileen, I think you mentioned the spirit of power forward, and we mentioned before, and Lee, you were very complimentary towards having this today and to having this kind of initiative. The thing that I wanted to say was that I know that there's communication between for different issues and different emergencies and different things. And I mentioned cybersecurity. It seems like that there's a real effort to work with one another. And I would just, we're responsible for the state of Ohio, and you're responsible for Ohio and other states and all of you, but we're responsible for Ohio, and it's a major state, and it's one that that the question is, do we, or is there a need to, or could we have some discussions? Could utilities have just meetings that they talk about the grid, the smart devices, investments, the platform, batteries, all the things that are, technology and things are moving pretty quickly. And I think, there'd be some assurance to at least some of us that if all the utilities in Ohio think one way, then it's then it would be, I think, of interest. And also, if all the interest and if all the utilities in Ohio, this would be helpful to them, or they're approaching it. I guess I'm thinking about the platform and other things. They're approaching it in a way that's a collaborative. And I know you're collaborative, but are you collaborative with the other utilities in the state of Ohio?
Yeah, so I think, we welcome collaboration. We do R&D as an industry. We have so many industry standards activities across the nation, but we haven't done it in a specific, state-specific arena. And I think we would welcome sharing best practices, certainly, sharing the vision for the future, understanding where there's commonality or where there's disagreement, and in essence challenging each other to make sure that we're advancing the right thing for the states that we serve. I would say that for every state, but because you're so progressive here in Ohio and trying to advance this, it makes very good sense to start here.
I agree. I agree that we have participated in a number of national forums, in terms of, I know certainly with respect to our consumer behavior study, we gave numerous presentations across the country sharing the results of that research finding with our peers. And I think the point is extremely well taken that, hey, maybe we could drill down a little closer to home and spend, not to say we aren't going to do the national outreach, but I think there is a value in sharing ideas and thoughts and collaboration within the state, because the state has very unique attributes that differ really from the national view. So I think we would welcome that.
Commissioner Trombold. Not again. Not again. We're okay. It's the end. It goes blank. I'm actually going to see if I can make it. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, thanks for coming. Appreciate you being here. I just have a question, and it kind of ties into what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, which is distributive energy resources. And I know, Eileen, you brought up EVs in particular and plug-in vehicles and how that affects the grid. I was wondering if you could talk about, to the extent your companies have worked on hosting capacity or integrating DER. We sometimes call them DERs, don't tell anyone. People laugh at us, but as a quick way of explaining it. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that, and within your company is what you do or what you'd like to do, or any plans you have to do with distributed energy resources.
Yes, so I'll start with North Carolina. So North Carolina is #2 in the country with solar capacity. Most of it is utility scale, so this is large PERPA puts to our system. I want to say we're approaching 2,000 megawatts. It's a big number in North Carolina. So integrating distributed resources, especially those that are connected to the distribution system, is a big deal. And you know, it's more than just will be solved with a DERMS, a distributed energy resource management system. It's going to require policies and practices. It's going to require infrastructure investments. And a topic that I'm really excited about is what we call today demand response, and really what I think about in the future as dispatchable demand. And how do you integrate that in the way you operate your distribution system and ultimately your bulk power system? So, you know, today demand response typically looks at your peak load and you decide you want to reduce demand through controlling a water heater or an HVAC system or some other device, maybe a thermostat on your system. At some point in time in the future, we may find that there are times when supply is abundant and demand is low, and we've got to keep our system stable by dispatching demand and being able to dispatch it, whether it's a battery or maybe it's one of these new advanced water heaters that you can kind of superheat and store your thermal energy in that manner, or you can use it to overcool or pre-cool areas that you would have permission from a consumer. And to be able to integrate dispatchable demand as well as you know, understanding the day ahead and hour ahead needs and impacts of your system is a capability that we've got to build into our grid for the future.
So you characterize it as something that's being contemplated and worked on, but it hasn't been, isn't operational.
So there is no comprehensive solution. We've got, you know, we have some demand response capabilities, and we do have energy storage, and we're a pilot user. We've got about 40 megawatts of energy storage in service. Most of that connected to the distribution system is in R&D space to kind of understand what these capabilities and what the performance looks like. We have a commercial installation in Texas that's serving the ancillary services market. So that's, you know, something that's very unique. But we haven't developed a comprehensive solution, and certainly we believe that's going to be needed in the future as we see more distributed resources, and they would be, you know, dispatchable and non-dispatchable supply and demand sprinkled across our grid.
Great, thank you. How about you, Eileen?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We have probably, and this number probably grew since the last time I checked on the number, and frankly, I checked on the number at lunch today, but we have about 1,150 distributed energy resources on our Ohio system. I exclude from that demand response. I'll address demand response separately. So in large measure, those are solar installations, and then to a very secondary extent, wind, and then cats and dogs beyond that. In large measure, those are retail customers, although we do have 3 customers who are interconnected at the wholesale level. So our involvement to date with customers has really been setting up and working through, from a tariff perspective, our interconnection tariffs, setting up customers on our net metering tariff, partial service tariff, working with customers, these customers who want to go directly to the wholesale market, providing them advice and guidance as to how they can take their energy directly to the wholesale market rather than, you know, selling it through a net metering tariff to our customers. So I would say to date, our engagement with these distributed energy resources from a generation perspective has been, I guess, what I would largely call pragmatic. How do we get these on the system? How do we know where they are so that we can incorporate it into our planning? But it's very much a manual process, not an automated process in terms of working with our customers. With respect to demand response resources, our 3 Ohio utilities do have a program where we have customers under tariff who we can interrupt, and we have the opportunity to curtail or interrupt these customers at the utility level. So it doesn't need to be an RTO event in order to cause that to happen. If we have a system emergency, we're able to interrupt those customers. Both our ATSI, our transmission operator, could call an interruption for those customers, as could each of our individual utilities. So we do have some programs. Are we where we need to be for the future world? No. There's a long way to go. But I think each time we interact and work with our customers, bring a new customer online, whether it is, a net metering customer, a new interconnection agreement, we learn that much more. But I think at the end of the day, successful integration of large-scale deployment of distributed energy resources is going to have to require automation.
Thank you.
Okay. Lee, Eileen, thank you very much.
Thank you
We
for
really
having
appreciate your
us.
time here.